Welcome to the Facility Services Mini Train. I'm Beth the Trainer, and today we're talking about email. Specifically, we're starting a Mini Train mini-series on professional email etiquette. When you're sending personal emails, you pretty much get to decide your own rules for what is and isn't appropriate. I can think of some people who shouldn't have that power. But when it comes to the workplace, there are definitely some guidelines we need to be aware of. After all, it's only by understanding the rules that we can make informed choices about whether we can bend or break them, depending on the situation. The first thing to remember is that people get a lot of emails. I mean, like, a lot. As recently as 2020, there were over 306 billion emails sent worldwide each day. The average office worker receives about 121 emails every day, which means we're spending about 40% of our time just dealing with email. And the kicker is only about 38% of what hits the average inbox is actually even important. On top of that, it takes over a minute to recover from an email interruption and return to work at the same rate as before the interruption. Do the math. 120 emails a day, a minute to get back to work after dealing with each one. That's 2 hours a day we can spend just trying to get back on track. Email is a critical resource and an important business tool, but there's a lot of noise in the average inbox. If you want to be accurately heard and understood, you need to make sure your emails are effective and useful. Your email will make a strong, immediate impression. And one of the best ways to ensure this is a positive impression is to pay attention to three things you might be ignoring: the subject line, the greeting, and the closing or signature. Believe it or not, these things set the tone for your entire message. And in fact, they can even make a difference as to how fast, or even if, you get a reply. The subject line is important because a good subject line may make the difference between your email being opened or being ignored. The subject line should make the relevance of the email clear and should make sense to the recipient so they know immediately why they're getting it. For example, here's a great way to get your email deleted immediately. Vague subject, misspellings, too many exclamation points. It looks like spam. Instead, try being specific and clear. Like that. The email will already have your name on it, so putting that in the subject line is redundant. Instead, specify what is coming from you. Why are you emailing? Another point, the subject line should never be used to hold the content of the email. It's a summary of the message, not the entire message itself. If you use the subject line to hold the message, your entire message may not actually fit the space or even be visible to the recipient. Instead, give an overview of what they'll find when they open the email. And putting the message in the subject line doesn't actually save the recipient any time either, because people will inevitably open the email to see if there's additional information they need in the body of the message. And if there's not, they've wasted their time. Another big one is the greeting. It's a simple thing, but don't neglect the greeting. It can come across as curt, and you should try to customize the greeting based on the formality required. An email sent to a coworker with whom you frequently talk will certainly be more casual than an email you might send to a director or a customer on campus. Avoid being too generic. Nobody's going to respond to that. And unless you know the recipient's preference, it's best to be a bit more formal initially and then mirror what they choose to do in their response. And the third important element of your email. Your email recipient should find really two things at the bottom of your email: your sign-off closing with your name, and then your signature. You sign off because this signals to your recipient that your email has come to an end, and this is your parting message. Leaving that out is kind of like walking away from the end of a conversation without saying goodbye. It can leave a bad impression. For each email you send, you have to take into consideration who you're emailing and what your message is, and then use an appropriate sign-off, just like you did the greeting. Your greeting and your closing should work together to match the appropriate formality. And don't forget the signature. This adds a professional touch and makes it easier for recipients to contact you. At the very least, it should include your name, phone number, and email address. It can also include your job title, website, office address. Yeah, but it should never contain inspirational quotes. That's it for part one. Next time we'll talk about the tone of your emails, what that means, why it's important, and how to make sure your email is received the way you meant it. I'll see you then.